All right, I guess we can start. Maybe some more folks will come, but let's begin. All right, so hi everyone. I'm very happy to see you all. My name is Paweł. For a brief introduction, I used to code in Java for like 12 years professionally, and then I moved to, let's say, the dark side. And now I'm taking care of several teams of DevOps and developers at Xibia, Poland. Used to be known as PGS Software for previous 15 or 17 years. Today I will tell you a story about leadership dilemmas. So there's a plan, but first I would like to ask you, who of you is actually a leader? Who is responsible for some people at the company? Okay, and who is doing stuff like hiring, firing, salary negotiations? Sometimes called the manager. All right, we have some people. Good. All right, so our plan, we'll start with the beginning of journey in leadership and what kind of difficult problems we can spot there. Then we are going to look into the decision-making context, right? When there are dilemmas, we have to make a decision, and there is a lot of context to it, a lot of factors that we have to consider. Then the heart of our land of dilemmas. So there is something on the left, on the right, and we have the grayness space in between that we have to navigate. And at the end, some, let's say, general tips, what we can do. All right, so let's start our journey into the leadership. Becoming a leader is a little bit like becoming an adult, right? When you are in your teens, you have this idea that adults are those, kind of mythical creatures that know what's going on. They have the world figured out. They know what to do in all those situations. They are responsible, right? And then when you are on the day of your 18th birthday, you are waking up and bam, nothing happens, right? I still don't know what to do. Even if when you are 20, when you are 30, 40, right, you still often don't know what to do. You are like this child wandering in the fog. They say the first 40 years of childhood in man is the most difficult. I'm not sure about this exactly. But with leadership, it's kind of similar. When you are this line employee, you have this idea that leaders are those mysterious creatures that know what's going on, understand the company, know all the rules, know what to do in all the situation. They know what's happening in the mind of CEO, right? And then when you become officially the leader, you have this nice footer in your email, bam, nothing happens, right? You still have doubts. After even years of experience, you are sometimes like this child wandering in the fog. And getting out from the fog, you have the concept of leader loneliness. Right, so despite, by definition, being in a team, you often have to make decisions alone, right? Because there is some information you cannot share with your people, like salary negotiation stuff or some secret company strategies, something like this. Especially if the higher you up in the company, the stronger this feeling is that you are just alone there with all your problems. Getting down from the mountain, often we encounter those crossroads, right? We have to make a choice, go left or right. Right. From Greek, we call this the dilemma. This is the situation when you have to make a choice, and both choices are bad. Right? Something bad is going to happen. You have to make a trade-off. Right? Sometimes there is more than one choice. You might have consecutive series of choices or more than one option. Right? You can go forward, left, right, maybe get back at an angle. Sometimes you don't even have discrete choices, right? You are like in the swamp, you are knee-deep or waist-deep in a swamp. You can go forward, you can go right, left, maybe at an angle, but you don't know the angle, right? Maybe you have to take some sword and hack and slash for the wilderness, or maybe you should take a dive and go for for some underwater secret passage. You might not be presented with discrete options. Getting out from our swamp, we encounter the Oracle Hat. Oracle has this magical device, this magic ball that knows everything what is happening around, has all the inputs, and can give you all the answers that you need in your dilemmas. Right? Looking from the computer science point of view, that would be like a black box with inputs and outputs. Right? On the input side, we have all the decision-making context, so all the factors that you have to take into account when making decisions. Right? And on the other hand, we have the answers, what we should do, perhaps on different scales, like should we act quickly, or we can gather more information, should we be more soft or maybe more harsh with our communication, stuff like this. So now, unfortunately, this device does not exist, right? It would be too easy. But we can talk about those inputs and outputs and see what's going on there. So let's start with our inputs, the context. So first of all, there's some kind of situation. Like for instance, a project manager comes to you saying that one of your people screw up, or one of your people comes to you and says the project manager screw up something, right? There's a fire on production. Somebody wants to quit the company. Somebody can't work with someone else, and you have to react somehow, adapt to the situation. Maybe act preemptively just before something is happening. And there are consequences. You are on the ship, and there is the hole in the ship. Now the question is the hole below the waterline, or is it above the waterline? Like, are we taking the water or not? Maybe the ship is on fire. Do we have time? Can we reverse the decision that we are going to make? And there's the story of money, right? The last 5 years in business was kind of like a roller coaster. It was pretty normal 5 years ago. Then the COVID hit. Nobody knew what's going on for a few months. Then, depending on your business, you were either in a very bad situation or pretty good situation, right? If you had a product connected with travel, yeah, not so good. But if you were a software house, a lot of clients had to migrate their systems to online presence, and you could make a lot of money. And after roughly 2 years, it plateaued, and now we are in this decline for more or less 2 years, and now we see what's happening. We see some first signs of business coming back. But in general, money is a factor, right? So if you have a lot of money, you can just often throw money at the problem, pay people more, maybe hire more people. Doesn't always solve the problem, but you have more options, right? There are perspectives. So something happened, that's an objective fact, but depending on who you ask, they would have different perspective on what was going on. So in general, you have to talk, usually, to know what really happened, you have to talk to several people to see their perspectives, what really happened there. And we have people, right? People are different, they have different personalities, different needs, wants, fears, etc. You have to account for all of that. There's this concept of so-called seniority, right? You have those labels of junior, mid, senior, principal, whatever. And often this impacts how we are working with those people. And by the way, seniority is not one-to-one mapping. It's basically you can be great technically, but you can be very shitty at talking to clients in business stuff, right? So there is a map, actually. Then there is a leader, yourself, right? You have a different personality, different leadership styles. Whatever you do might work quite well, and with a different leader, with a different style and different personality, you can go to the same outcome by making different decisions. Some will suit you better, some worse. And there is organizations. There are a lot of framework to describe types of organizations. We have like matrices, we have the steps in evolution, we use different colors, etc. We have big, small, old, new, right? What's important here, especially when you are changing the organization, you are going for a quick dynamic startup to an old bank, for instance, the stuff will be quite different there. So we have to be very careful. And there are so-called other factors, like for instance, biological factors. There is this, for instance, this phenomena called the hungry judge effect. They did the research, and it turns out that when judges were hungry before the lunch, they were more harsh with sentencing, right? And after they ate, they were no longer hungry. They were kind of nicer, like smaller sentences. And it's actually our internal biological state impacts us with decision making. When you're hungry, angry, you haven't slept, you are stressed, etc., it has a lot of impact. So whenever you have the luxury of time, maybe it's good to postpone some decisions until you get some sleep or eat something. All right, so let's move to the heart of our journey. We'll start with the classic one. So individualism and equality. Should we treat everyone the same or everyone differently, right? People are different, so you have to cater to their specific needs. I have this one friend who loves flowers. She has like, I don't know, 50 plants at her apartment, and she waters them exactly the same, right? And what happens from time to time is one of the plants dies, either too much water or not enough water. So doing the same with people, maybe not the best idea, right? On the other hand, if you treat everyone individually, you allow some people to do more, then it might damage the sense of fairness, right? Why somebody is allowed to go to 2 conferences and I can only go to 1 conference. Right? So what to do with this situation? In general, it's good to look at what kind of value the person is bringing to the company, to the team, right? If they help others, if they promote good company culture, if they bring a lot of value, then other people kind of accept that they are allowed to do a little bit more, right? The next dilemma would be whether we should hold on to the processes or be flexible, right? So should we follow all the rules or should we sometimes bend them or even break them, right? And let's get back roughly 40 years. It's September 26, 1983. There is a Soviet command bunker that controls an early warning system that detects nuclear missile launches from United States towards Soviet Union. The system is called OKO. And there is a commander in this bunker, and on this very day, there is a red dot, an alarm. Right? The system detected nuclear missile launch from United States towards Soviet Union. The atmosphere is rather tense. Right? In a few moments, there are 4 additional dots. So the system detected 5 missiles going towards Soviet Union. The commander has a clear protocol. He should inform his superiors in Moscow that, hey, the Yankees launched the missiles. We should do something about this. But the commander hesitates. And he sees that something is a little bit off. Like if the Americans were to attack, they would launch thousands of missiles from all over the place, basically, not just 5 from 1 place. Also, the system was quite new. It wasn't very well tested. Right? So the commander makes the decision and breaks the protocol. He does not inform his superiors. Right? He just waits. And it turns out he was right. It was just a false alarm. It was some rare alignments of clouds, and light was bouncing from that, and sensors were fooled. You know, Soviet sensor in the 80s, not especially high-tech stuff, right? But in the end, the commander was right. He broke the rules. So what should we actually do? Should we be breaking rules all the time or following them? You know, if you don't follow any rules, it will be just pure chaos, right? You can't get anything done. If you follow all the rules to the letter, well, there are always corner cases that are not covered by the rules, or you would have to have as many rules that it would be impossible to maintain them, right? So from time to time, it's actually a good idea to bend the rules a little bit, right? The idea here is to follow the idea of the rule maker, right? So what was in the mind of a person that was preparing those rules, not what's the literal rule. What's also helpful here is a good company culture that is shared with people in the company. So if people have like a common understanding of what should we do, what we shouldn't do, then it's kind of helpful. Kind of similar idea, similar environment. Something happened in the company, there is some change, right? And you get the information from above, and your job is to pass it to your people to enforce some new rules maybe. But the point is, you don't like this change, right? It does not resonate with you. What should you do in this situation, right? It wouldn't be very natural to expect from your people something that you don't agree with, right? So what you can do here is, take a bit of time, talk to your boss, ask, okay, why are we doing this? What's the reason behind this, right? And there is this whole framework of, dealing with changes. There are those stages of denial, then acceptance, bargaining, some experimentation. So it's nice to give yourself just a little bit time to get at least a little bit on board with this change, assuming that you have this luxury of time, right? And then you can go to your people and propagate all of that. The next classic, we have democracy and autocracy, right? So should you always ask everyone about their opinion when making decision, or should you just, rule with the iron fist and say that this will be done like this will be done like that, right? Democracy has some merits. It has some quality to the decisions, right? You have more inputs, more points of view. It also gives people the sense of, they have impact on what we are doing in the company. On the other hand, democracy is costly. You can actually calculate, that I have, 6 senior developers for 5 hours times the hour wage here. It's problematic. So in general, a good idea here is to start with democracy, but when you get stuck, right, or maybe decision is not that important, then maybe you can change to autocracy and make some decision for your own. Next, we have this serene, beautiful meadow. Right? The question here is, should we pay a lot of attention to our people or micromanage them, or should we just leave them be, leave them at peace, right? And to the rescue here, we have this so-called Blanchard situational leadership framework. Depending on the competence on your of your people, you should adopt different styles of leadership, right? If somebody is starting, he's just a junior or starting the company, then maybe we should micromanage a little bit more, like guide them, right? Take them by the hand and guide them. But if they are senior, if they have a lot of experience, they want to be autonomous, then they will just get angry if you try to do this. So you should focus on getting all the possible problems out of their way, make sure they are motivated, and just let them do their job. I'm changing the scenery quite a bit. We have this scary monster here. So often we have this situation, you are in the room, you are looking through the window, and there are some monsters, right? Maybe company layoffs, some financial problems, maybe some toxicity going on. And now the question is, should you, cover this monster with a carpet or something, shield the team from all these disruptions, or maybe you should be very transparent, right? And the typical situation, what let's say starting leaders do, is they have this instinct of shielding the team from all the possible bad stuff that is happening, right? In hope that they will keep the high morale. But it's actually tricky. It's not this or that, right? Because people talk to each other, they gossip, information leak in general, and often you would be better off if you just tell them what is happening. People have this need to know the why something is happening or that something is happening. So for instance, once I had this manager who would come to me and tell me, okay, Paweł, I shouldn't really be telling you this, but this and that happens in the company, and as a result, this and that will happen. And it actually was quite helpful for me, right? I felt better with that. Okay, leaving our monsters, we have our closest tribe, and we have this, let's say, kingdom or the corporate in the horizon. So the dilemma here is whether you should cater to the needs of your team, what they want to do, or cater to the needs of the company, what the company wants to do. Right? Of course, the company is the one that employed us. We signed some kind of contract, right? They have some strategy. If nobody follows the company strategy, probably we would go bankrupt in the end. But on the other hand, we have this instinct of catering to the needs of people who are closest to us, our family, our friends, our tribe, our team, right? So what to do here? Well, it's good to, sometimes team wants to do something a little bit different, like they prefer this technology, they don't want to switch, they like to work on this product or that one. Maybe we can look for some kind of synergies, like bend a little bit the company strategy, bend a little bit the team needs, and maybe we can meet somehow, somewhere in the middle. The next one, we're getting to the factory. Right? There is a lot of steam and a lot of pressure. So the question here is, should you pressure your team as much as possible to get this last 3% of performance from them, right? Or should you just let them slack, do whatever they want, right? And again, if we slack too much, then perhaps nothing is going to be done, and again, company goes bankrupt, right? If you pressure too much, if you have the system that is, on the brink of performance on the full capacity, and you add just a little bit of load to that system, what is happening, right? The system is going to collapse catastrophically, right? You have 95% of RAM taken in your machine, you add additional 5%, and it starts to swap between hard drive and RAM, and you lose 80% instead of gaining 5%, right? And the slack time is where the magic happens, right? So team solve their old problems, they are creative, they figure out some new features, maybe revolutionary features for your product, and usually teams get this right. So they do a little bit of slack, but they do some interesting and nice things there. And usually if you are thinking about changing this balance, you are pressuring too much, right? So think about this. The next one, we are meeting the rider. The rider is very powerful, can do a lot, but he's also toxic, right? So we have this high performance often in our company that can do like half the sales, or they can code like half the sprint, the whole sprint in one night, maybe then force push it to the main, but they are toxic, right? Other people don't like to work with them. They destroy our culture. It's problematic, but they bring a lot of money, right? You can sometimes easily calculate how much money you get, like from a salesperson, for instance. Some calculate how much line of code a programmer writes. Not a very good metric, but this is difficult. It's difficult to measure the damage, right? So how much other people are going to be unproductive because they feel bad with this person, right? What is the risk of losing this person because maybe you have a bus factor 1 and this person doesn't want to share any knowledge. And basically you have some people who just quietly quit, right? So they don't quit, but they just do barely minimum. They are kind of burnout or they don't care anymore. So the costs are really high. So what should we do here? Like on the one end, we have this no asshole policy, right? Some companies have no asshole policy, but what if actually this person is just maybe a little bit asshole, but very performant? Maybe there is some kind of line, like a balance that we can find. Tricky question. In general, what we can do in long distance, again, is promoting a good company culture. So for instance, sharing knowledge, helping others. If you are a team leader and you see a person that maybe didn't do that many tasks in Jira this sprint, but was helping a new guy, doing a lot of code reviews, making sure that there are no conflicts, this is a good work. Like, by the way, this is called a glue work. It's often very overlooked from the management perspective. So if you have those people, those types of good spirits in the team, it's very important to nurture them. Going next from this topic, kind of similar. We have our stars, so high performance. Now let's assume they are not toxic. Everything is okay with them. They are doing a lot of work. And we have the opposites, right? Sometimes colloquially known, maybe not very nicely, as the deadwood. So people who don't care at all. They are just maybe incompetent, or they don't give a damn, simply. And now the question is where you should spend more of your time and your focus as a leader. On those top performance, those stars, or maybe on those deadwood at the other end. Right? The instinct is that you are spending time where something is happening, where there is noise, somebody is complaining, or where the production is on fire, stuff like this. So you are spending a lot of time with the deadwood. You are doing some feedbacks, talking to them, fixing their problems, maybe doing some repair plans, etc. At the end, maybe you are going to fire them. But think about this. There is this law, the square root law, or the prices law it's called. It says that a square root of the number of people in your company does half the work. If you have 100 people in a company, right, 10 people will do half the work. If you have 10,000 people, then just 100 people will do half the work. So now imagine if you can just improve a little bit those people on top, like add maybe 3 or 5%. Just make sure they are happy, remove all the obstacles from their way. You can gain much more than spending a lot of time or fixing the people at the other end. Of course, it's great to give people another chances, maybe second chance, third chance. You have to be very careful, right? Examine what was really happening. Maybe somebody is not performing because of some personal issues or health issues, or there's something else at play, right? So make sure you research the topic precisely before you make some difficult decisions. But think about your top performers first. Continuing this trend, we are at this bad end, this deadwood end. And what should we do? How much time we should spend on fixing them, nourishing them, and at what point we should just banish them or fire them, right? So again, it's nice to give people second or third chances, right? Something could happen with their personal lives or health or something. You have to be careful. But on the other hand, if you just, continue, okay, I'm not going to fire this guy. No, let's give them the fifth chance, maybe something. Then you are destroying the rest of the team, basically, right? Because people see that they are working hard, doing good job, and then there is a person that is, just not doing anything, and he's still at the company. So be very careful there, and at some point you have to perhaps make some difficult decisions. Okay, next one is kind of operational one. So we have this golem and we have this druid, right? The golem is very efficient at his work, does a lot of work, but is kind of cold. And the druid has a lot of personal touch. Sometimes you have this dilemma as software engineers, usually as leaders with background in software engineering, we tend to optimize things, right? We tend to optimize the communication, for instance, maybe let's batch it, stuff like this. But if you add a little bit overhead, a little bit additional effort, you are often create some additional value, right? So sometimes instead of sending an email to a group of people, maybe it's a better idea to talk to them one-to-one, maybe call them, maybe meet them in the corridor. It's not always the good idea. But for instance, we had this in our company, we had this situation that basically we are a software house. So we have team leaders who are working with people that are working for different clients, different projects. You have one team leader and basically it usually stays this way. You may change the clients, but the team leader is the same. And now sometimes the team leader changes because maybe he leaves the company or maybe people are changing technology from going from Java to DevOps, for instance, different departments, different team leaders. And we had this ritual that we are meeting the old team leader, the new team leader, and the person. And there's a little bit of nice chit-chat, saying thank you, saying hello, etc. And now, for instance, what to do if 3 people are changing from one team leader to another team leader, right? You can do 1 meeting together, optimize, but maybe you can just, do 3 meetings and be more personal. That depends on the person, of course. Some will like it, some actually not, but think about maybe you can add a little bit of inefficiency in your communication, but add a little bit of value in personalizing that. We are coming to almost an end. So we have the classic planning and action. So should you, check all the possibilities, make a lot of research, or should you make swift decision as a leader? Often new leaders, especially in technical background, have this idea that they are waiting with decisions. They have to check everything, make sure that they haven't left anything. In the end, when we are invoking a function in code, we need all the arguments, right? Otherwise, there will be some null pointer in there. But the part of becoming a leader is, accepting that you don't have all the data. And sometimes you have to make decision with incomplete data. And then when you look at this in the future, with some additional data, some insight, you might think, okay, I made a bad decision. I could do something differently. But at this point in the past, when you had this exactly data incomplete, this is the best decision that you could take, right? And sometimes it's important to make those decisions. Then we have, again, emotions and logic. So as a background in software development, we often tend to make decisions, algorithmically. We have ifs, we have switches, we have loops, right? Everything checks out, but on the other end, we have people. People are complicated. People have their emotions, they have their fears, needs, and wants, right? And you have to take account of that. Maybe sometimes when you made a decision, think about when you are going to speak with a person and communicate this, how this person is going to feel. Try to, get in their boots and think maybe how you would feel when your boss comes to you and says something like that. Maybe after this exercise, you would change the decision, or maybe you can at least change the way you communicated that or plan to communicate that. Last but not least, we have the trilemma, the 3-body problem. Okay, who of you have seen the Netflix series or the book, 3-body problem? One. Yes, it's also originally the Chinese one. Right. So in this 3 bodies, one body is the team, the second body is the company, and the third body is the leader, right? And now we often spend a lot of time thinking about how to cater to our team, how to make everyone happy, how to make the company happy, earn a lot of money, and we forget about ourselves, right? We are this thing that connects the first and second body. If the leader is not functioning correctly, then the whole system falls apart. So whenever you are overworked, burned out, in a bad emotional state, then everything falls out. So also think about yourself in the whole leadership journey. Okay, I had a bit of so-called miscellanea. If you don't know how to name the last chapter of presentation, miscellanea works quite well. So we like observability in our systems, right? But what about observability with our people in the company? right? We can make some surveys from time to time, ask people a lot of questions, like if they like what they are doing, if everything is okay. What we do, aside from that, in our company, we have this thing called the happiness barometer. And how it works is every week, at the end of the week on Friday, when you are filling the timesheet, there's a small pop-up asking you, how are you doing in your projects? Do you like it, right? And there are just 4 options. There are actually 4 ducks, like a rubber ducks, right? There's a very happy, excited duck. Everything is great, cool, nice. There's a quite happy duck, so I'm doing good. Everything is okay. There is a rather sad duck, not very well. And there is this very sad, depressed duck, right? And you can just choose one of those 4. It takes like 2.5 seconds, probably, depending on which browser do you use, probably. But in general, we can observe some trends there, right? Somebody was quite happy, and then something happened, right? And we can ask the person, hey, what happened? Why did you click this sad duck? Maybe this person wouldn't tell you this in one-on-one, maybe. You can observe some bigger trends, like the project manager changed for the team, and now suddenly something like this happened, or maybe something like this happened, right? Maybe something is changing in the client environment. We actually use this data even to talk to our clients and to negotiate and to set priorities, right? If there are some projects that are consistently not doing very well in the barometer, then the priority of those projects gets lower. So we don't want to bring our best people, for instance, to this project, right? So that's an interesting tool. And again, if you have some problems, issues as a leader, remember there should be a person called your boss or your leader. The job of this person is to help you, right? It's important to maintain a good relationship, talking sincerely about your problems. Sometimes this person might be very busy, especially higher up a little bit. Maybe he's flying from client to the client, trying to get some contracts. So then again, usually you have some other leaders around you, right? And maybe they can help you. So in case of our company, we used to have at some point meeting called the Python leaders without X, where X was the name of our director or manager, right? So we're discussing stuff among ourselves. So if it's helpful, if it's possible, just go for it. Again, remember that there are different styles of leadership. You can make quite different decisions than some other leader, and you can still be successful. You can converge to this common point. So it's not that if you think that I would do something differently than this guy, it's not that you are wrong, right? You have probably different style of leadership. Then if you don't know what to do, right, so our algorithmic approach is not working. We still don't have an answer to our dilemma. There's this weird thing called intuition, right? Sometimes you don't know why, but you just feel that, okay, you have this gut feeling that this is a good decision, then I should go with that. But what's stopping you is your software developer mind, that I don't have data for that or algorithm. So in general, it's a good idea to, from time to time, to trust your intuition. You can maybe define intuition as a neural network trained or 10,000 hours of experience, right? And we don't know what is exactly happening inside neural networks, but we trust them often. So don't be afraid to trust your intuition. If you really don't know what to do, you might do this experiment. Think about if you are going to be able to look at yourself in a mirror after making this decision, right? Whether you are going to keep your internal integrity or not. If not, maybe it's not a good decision, or maybe you should again think about communicating this differently to those that are affected. All right. So that's the last slide. The QR code leads to my LinkedIn. There are some other social media as well. I have this blog with Java in the name, but I'm not really writing about Java for several years. Probably it's mostly general software development and peopleware. But you can find slides from this presentation there. And there also should be some recordings in probably both Polish and English, I think. So if you would like to get back to this or share with somebody, you can find it there. And I started a series of articles based on those dilemmas. I think I have 3, and again, additional 2 in the draft stage since 4 months probably, but we will get there. Right, so folks, take care of your people, take care of yourselves, and thank you very much.